Episode 4, Session 1. I'm just going to record like this. And I'm going to get my browser pulled up so I can actually show some things. I've been just watching a ton of this guy on YouTube called Brian Forrester. And this dude has gone through like Egypt and Peru and Mexico and all these places with ancient megalithic sites. And he's pretty much documented everything that's there, and he talks about how they had to use advanced technology to make this stuff that was probably a lot of it 12,000 years old or even older, even though the Egyptologists say that it's only about up to 5,000 years old, 3,000 to 5,000. And really, at this point in time, outside of Egyptology, in archaeology, there's been discoveries like Göbekli Tepe and what's the other one? Quran Tepe or something like that. I might have messed up that name, but ooh, those are both places that were 12,000 years old that have a bunch of structures and people were living at. And so now there's been evidence of other places in the world that were that old and older before the Younger Dryas, before the world probably got hit by asteroids or whatever happened, electromagnetic. There's a bunch of ideas of what really caused the floods, but one thing is that everybody agrees is that there were floods among other great catastrophes. Anyway, after oh yeah, okay. So I found this guy's channel, Brian Forrester, and I knew about Graham Hancock. I read some of his books. I read this other book called Civilization 1. But you know what? It was not like... It wasn't about like the actual sites and megalithic places and things like that. It was about measurements, like, for the most part. Like, length and weight and time and all of that. And these guys that wrote that book called Civilization 1, I can't remember the names of the authors right now, but they basically found a link between all of these different measurement systems from modern times all the way back to ancient times, going back to some precursor. So that was just more evidence that there was some long lost civilization of some kind. And so this guy's channel, he goes around all these places and he shows all these different things. And one of the crazy things that he showed, which I'm going to try to pull up pictures of this. So there's this one part in Egypt where there's a 1,200 ton obelisk that was being made. At the time. So it's just laying there in a pit. Okay. So this is like a 1,200 ton piece of stone. And the thing about it that this guy pointed out was how it looks like it's been scooped on, like clay or ice cream or something. Like see how those lines look like scoopy waves? Anyway, I can't probably show it, but in the videos he actually goes down in there and shows even more how narrow it is, how the bottom is all scooped on, how the walls kind of have that the same type of look. And I don't know. He's saying how that means it could be advanced technology, which to me it seems like, because uh, it doesn't look like it's being cut out. It looks like maybe what I thought it looked like. I know this might sound crazy, but there's this tool that shoots a jet of water to cut. It's like a power washer, but it's a really small nozzle. It's like I don't know. I can't remember what they call it. But to me, that's what it looked like. Could have done something similar. Or maybe, I mean, because if you think about it, the only other thing that could have happened was somehow that whole rock had to be clay for somebody to, like, make those grooves. Or it had to be, I don't know what kind of stone that was, but anyway, just stuff like that. There's all these crazy boxes that are really precise, and man, had me tripping. But it makes you think, like, you can't see it in this picture because nobody's on that thing, but it's massive. Like, a person is so small compared to that. Like, there's a bunch of people on there at one point in the video. Anyway, there's like hours of this stuff. And I don't know, it has me tripping out. Like, just how the scale of everything from really ancient times, like possibly 12,000 years ago, possibly they were just hauling around 1,200-ton stones like it was nothing. They were just scooping them out of the side, scooping them out of the earth in whatever shape they needed, and taking it hundreds of miles, possibly, to go line up with such incredible precision. And I guess a lot of the quartz stuff, the stuff that's granite with quartz, it's like pink, which this isn't what I imagined from ancient Egypt, but they don't tell you about this stuff. When you go back to the really old stuff, hold on, I'll find it. But when you go back to the really old stuff, everything is made out of this red granite quartz stuff. I should have prepared more, like, oh, I can show the pattern. So this is the pattern. This is just a pattern, but this just shows you like what, and there's a small thing in there, so I don't want to use too much of that. There's a small watermark that I just noticed, but that color, like, I probably can't put that up for too long because it has like a watermark on it, but just that pattern of granite, that pink and black kind of salmon type of, I don't know how to explain the pattern, but that type of granite is all over the place in these ancient sites. And I don't know, for some reason they just make you think it's all like sandstone or limestone or whatever, but that stuff is all over, and that's like the most like precise stuff, and I guess it has a hardness. It's harder than the tools they were supposed to have. Like, they were supposed to have bronze tools, but this stuff is harder than that. So, how did they make it? I looked up the Mohs hardness scale. That's what I did next. I was like, what is the hardness of this? So I can show that. Okay, so the Mohs hardness scale. Oh, this is good. From the National Park Service. Check it out. Okay. Mohs hardness scale. So we got diamond is the hardest thing that I guess we know of at 10. A steel nail and masonry drill bits are at 8.5. Oh, masonry drill bit, 8.5. Steel nail, 6.5. But a knife or something like that is 5.5. So you can see that our steel tools have varying ranges depending on what quality they're made at. But I want you to notice quartz, which is what a lot of that granite has in it. That's why there's pink parts on it. That red granite pattern that I just showed you, that's number 7. That has a hardness of 7. So quartz and granite are up here at number 7. And this masonry drill bit is 8.5. So it's like just hard enough to do something against that granite stuff. And this guy also showed boxes that have holes that look like they were drilled out in these boxes. So, and not like small, like 70 millimeters. I don't know how much that is, a few inches of diameter, but there was one that was like 100 millimeters of diameter. So like, that's the type of stuff that we're talking about. And if limestone was even on here, but it's not, I wonder what it is. I should probably look that up. So I'm going to look that up. Because limestone's another popular stone in ancient building, but not usually in these giant megalithic ones. So let's see if we can find out. Limestone's 3.5. Okay, so limestone is only 3.5. Remember, granite and quartz is 7, and a diamond is 10, and that's the hardest thing. And now, in modern tools, we have diamond tools. We have steel with diamond in it, of all sorts of things. Saw blades, drill bits, lathes, everything. And also, we have CNC, and also now we have 3D printing. So we have a bunch of advanced technologies. And honestly, what's crazy is 3D printing might honestly be the closest way to how they were making this stuff. What if these ancient Egyptians were 3D printing the pyramids? I mean, think I should have kept that that photo up that I just had. I think it was this one. Yeah. I mean, think about it. It looks like they were like scooping or blasting or something. What if they were 3D printing this shit? You know? They just had some sort of like, I don't know, like CNC rig that was massive. The thing is how big it is. And of course, you're like, how could they have 3D printed 12,000 years ago? I have no clue, but that's almost what it seems like. And if you look at the metals they're supposed to have had, that's what I want to find out is, because I don't know all this stuff, okay? So I need to look a lot of things up. Oh, sweet. Okay, here we go. All right, so I found a list. So as far as metals and what tools they have, bronze is a 3. Bronze is a 3. Limestone was 3.5. So that means bronze is going to have trouble against limestone. So even all the limestone stuff, which honestly to me is impressive, because even if you look at the more recent Egypt stuff, there's a lot of impressive building throughout all of ancient Egypt, even the more, I guess, modern stuff, and a lot of that was limestone, and that's harder than bronze, but I think they had iron, so that's what I want to see next on this list. This list looks awful because of it's probably the ad blocker, the browser or something, but iron is 4.5. Only 4.5, and steel says 4 to 4.5, but we actually just learned that. Oh, this says it right here. Hardened steel is 7 to 8. Titanium is a 6. Tungsten carbide is 8.5 to 9. And tungsten 7.5. I know what tungsten carbide looks like as far as being tools. It looks like metal, but let's see what it is. It's a chemical compound containing equal parts of tungsten and carbon. It's a fine gray powder that can be pressed and formed into shapes through sintering, or frittage, a process of compacting and forming a solid mass of material by heat or pressure without melting it to the point of liquefaction. So like a press? Like a rosin press? Are you saying the ancient Egyptians could have made this out of a press? And not actually really the ancient Egyptians, but whoever was there before them. Oh, man. It gets crazy. But what is this? Metallic powders. Oh, man. This is how they make tungsten carbide, I guess. So, microwave sintering. Heat is sometimes generated internally within the material rather than via surface radiative heat transfer from an external heat source. Some materials fail to couple and others exhibit runaway behavior, so it is restricted in usefulness. Okay. Interesting. But that's probably not what we're dealing with. But anyway, it turns out that could be some really advanced stuff. Because I was like, okay, we've got really good stuff now, right? Like, we've got really good technology or whatever. How would we make it now? Like, let's see. Granite quarry. First, I want to see how a modern granite quarry looks. This is what a modern granite quarry looks like. You know, it's crazy. It doesn't look a lot different from the ancient ones, the really old ones. And they've been worn down on the edges, but if there was erosion here, and that looks like pretty massive chunks. But you see the way everything is broken off? And then all the stone is not going to be taken and used. They're going to take this stuff probably and break it down, grind it down, and then put it back together, huh? Okay. So once you have quarried granite, how granite countertops are made. How about that? Because this is something modern that happens with granite. Granite, how it's made. I don't know if I can show all of this. Okay, so the way they do it is they grab the granite, they blast it out, then they like shape it on site, and then they have a like a bulldozer or forklift or something grab it, and then they take it out, and then it goes through saws, giant machines. I mean, everything they're doing right now to work granite in this Granite How It's Made video requires massive heavy machinery. This is an expensive process. What I'm looking at right now is just crazy. It's like a giant, it's hard to even describe what's going on, but it's polishing the granite now that's been cut by all these crazy saws powered by wires and electricity, or all, they're blasting water in while the saws rock back and forth across the granite, and then now they've polished it. I mean, this is not... This is not something ancient people were supposed to be capable of at all. Like, when I was in school, I do not remember them telling me in history class that, oh, by the way, a lot of the really old stuff was made out of this granite, these giant blocks that are, 50 to 100 plus tons a piece, millions of them, and sometimes quarried from hundreds of miles away. And by the way, granite is a stone that in modern times requires the use of really advanced heavy-duty machinery every step of the way. Like, they didn't say that. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, maybe if we had, the logistics set up, we could build the pyramids now. But what does that say? If like now in 2021, like we've just now been able to build the pyramids as precise and to the extremes that they were. I mean, that granite looks like a lot of work. Let me see if I can pull up some images. Granite cutting, for example. Cutting granite by hand. Okay, so here is a picture of a way to cut granite by hand. And this guy, I guess, is using iron or whatever. Yeah, it's got to be iron because it's rusty. He's got a bunch of, I guess, railroad stakes, and he's got a couple wedges in each one, and he is hammering them into the granite at different spacings, and he's going to use wedges and pressure to break off the granite, which does work. But it's not precise. You're not going to get the flatness, the perfect flatness of the stones. You're not going to get the basically sharp corner edges. You're not going to get it smooth enough to where the stones can set together close enough that you can't get a hair through it or a piece of paper through it. And that's in the building blocks of a lot of these megalithic sites. But that's just from what I've been watching. That's why I'm trying to find out now, like, how do we do this today to make it precise? So that's one method, but I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's good enough at all. We've got How to Cut Granite Countertops, a step-by-step guide. This old house, they're using a side cutter. I hate that tool, but maybe it's just me. But yeah, I mean, that is a modern power tool. It requires a good bit of electricity. And anyway, this is small. This looks like they're expecting you to have a small piece of granite. Now, does it say what? It says use a professional. Okay. They basically spend most of the article telling you not to do this yourself, but it's an article that's supposed to tell me how to cut granite myself. So, like, just tell me how to do it. Yeah, if using a grinder, do not remove the guard. A face shield is recommended. Yeah, I agree. Those side grinders are not... they're not the safest tool out there. I mean, I've never seen it go bad firsthand, but, you know, everybody's heard a horror story, so anyway. But yeah, I mean, look. This article is telling us how to cut a granite countertop ourselves, and it requires a side grinder, which you have to plug into an outlet. It takes a lot of power, and it's loud, and if you use it on metal, it makes a bunch of sparks. You know what I mean? It's like a real tool, you know, a real power tool. Do you think 12,000 years ago, how could they have had power tools? But here we are. I mean, it's just so crazy. This guy is right, probably. But can I see, like... let's see. I want to go back to Granite Quarry. I want to see how that works. Like... how is granite quarried? I mean, if you think about it too, like, imagine that one of our modern sites was abandoned immediately after a big cataclysm and everything just goes crazy and, like, everything just goes crazy. Like, imagine that, and who knows what's happening, but the earth is flooding or something, or, you know, meteors are hitting the earth, or, you know, whatever. I mean, giant microwaves. I mean, most of our technology being metal and plastic, I mean, a lot of stuff could melt, I guess, if it was superheated by, like, electromagnetic blast or whatever. But also, impacts of comets and stuff is like a giant bomb, so that could make everything superheated and melt. And I imagine that there's other things that could as well. So, and if it's buried under dirt or ground or a flood or something, and then over time there's more pressure on it, a lot of that stuff is going to break down, right? Like, you know, metal over thousands and thousands of years probably corrodes and sort of breaks back down. And I don't know about the plastic stuff, really. What's funny is I think about what in our society is going to outlast to where if we get hit by the next cataclysm and then thousands of years later new civilizations like doing archaeology, what are they going to find from now? And probably all they'll find is plastic. There'll just be a layer, like a certain amount of feet under the earth, under the surface, that'll be, I don't know, representative of our time. It'll just be a layer of plastic. That's how they'll know.